Okay, so we're going to detract a little from our normal computer stuff, and we're going to go back to my cars for a little bit. So I recently got new wheels for my Tesla Model S, and I don't want to order these little plastic center caps for the wheels. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to show you how I make my own. So what you see here are 4 discs. They're exactly 2 inches in diameter. Got them on eBay, actually in a big lot, like 25 or 30 of them, whatever. They cost virtually nothing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to clean these things up, and we're going to emboss the Tesla logo on this. And then I'm going to use silicone to basically put the cap onto the wheel, and you'll see how it ends up turning out. So first things first, we're going to clean these. So I'm taking steel wool and just giving it a nice rub. Just has to be pretty clean for the vinyl to stick. So basically I printed out a vinyl logo, a vinyl Tesla logo, and we're going to stick that on here. And the reason for that is the embossing that we're going to do is going to take away the metal around anywhere where the aluminum is exposed. So we'll see. Well, you'll see how that works. Not my first rodeo doing this. So then we clean it with a little bit of alcohol here. And the reason for the cleaning here is so the vinyl can stick to the aluminum. So you don't have to go hog wild over it. Okay, so basically I've just cut the Tesla logos off of vinyl here. Yes, I have a printer that does that, but I'll show you in a second. You don't need to do that with a printer. Basically, we're just doing this to help me expose the metal that I want out of this, and I'll explain why in a minute. So we're going to take out the logo here. So now we're going to take the circular part out of here. Being careful with that little tiny thin piece at the top, right? Okay. So now we're just going to lay this down right here. Take one of the discs. Actually, I think it'll be easier to just keep the disc there. And put this on top. So the trick here is to line this up. Yeah. In the middle of the disc, right? All right. Takes a little bit of patience, but nonetheless. So I'll do the rest and not bore you with each one here, but the bottom line is where you see the exposed metal, we're going to put some electrical tape around to cover the whole thing off, but here with the logo where you see the exposed metal, we're going to be taking away some of that metal. So this will be a little bit deeper than the rest of the disc that's covered up. Now I'm using vinyl film. You can use vinyl film. If you don't have a vinyl cutter like I do, well, you can cut it out with scissors, I suppose, or an X-Acto knife, and then stick it on. You can use electrical tape. You could probably even use things like nail polish or anything that can come off as long as you're covering the metal. Okay, so now we're ready for the next step. I have a little plastic tub, some galvanized metal, scoop, some iodized salt, and some distilled water. Okay? So, first thing I'm going to do is we're going to do each one of these individually. You're not going to do all four at the same time. So like I said, any place where the metal is exposed, that's what's going to get eaten away. Okay? So we need to charge this thing up. So I'm going to attach this to the bottom here. And again, anywhere the metal is exposed, it's going to get eaten up, including this. You know, including the connector here. Okay, so we're going to use electrical tape to cover a lot of this stuff up. Okay. And you want to make sure that this is touching the metal, right? All right. So I think we're good. I don't see any exposed metal except the Tesla logo. Okay. So we're going to dump this in here. And we're going to fill it up with distilled water, just enough to cover this up. So that'll be about 1/2 inch of water. Okay. And then I'm going to add two scoops of iodized salt. Okay, and I'm going to agitate it a little bit. Get as much of the salt dissolved as I can. Okay. So now I can put this in here. If you need to add a little bit more water, now would be the time to do it. But I think we're good. Okay, so I want to measure the amperage here. So that's why I have this meter here. Now the power supply I'm using is an IBM laptop power supply. It basically puts out around, I think it's 16 volts at 4.5 amps. So what I'm going to do is monitor that this thing doesn't get hot. We're going to leave this for about 18 minutes. For it to eat away enough of the aluminum there. So the power supply on the DC side has the positive and the negative. So the positive side is this red wire here. We're going to hook that up to this side. Okay, and then the negative here, we're going to hook into our meter. And the other side is going to go onto this piece of galvanized aluminum or whatever this is. Okay, so we're going to turn this thing on to amps, measure the amps here. There we go. That's better. So 3.5 amps is what this is, and you can see the water is starting to fizzle with the negative terminal there. Okay, so we're going to leave this in here for about 18 minutes, and we'll keep an eye on this. It might go up to like around 7 amps or so, believe it or not, but that's okay as long as this thing here, the power supply that you see here, doesn't get hot. At least it'll get warm, but it doesn't get, you got to monitor it so it doesn't get super hot. If it starts getting super hot, you might want to consider shutting this down. Okay, so you can see it's working its magic. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. Okay, this is 12 minutes in. It's still fizzling, it's still going. The amperage is up to about 4.6, so that's still good. As long as it's still fizzling, it's still working. The power supply is a little warm, but it's not hot. So we've got about 6-7 minutes left. You could let it go longer, it's just going to etch more, so we'll just take a look at it. It's just that I've done this before. About 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I posted all this in the blog. It was before I had a YouTube channel. So I'm kind of familiar with what needs to happen. So 18 minutes was my magic mark, how deep I wanted it. But if you want it deeper, you just have to leave it in longer and probably add more salt and make sure that the water level is above the disc. The other thing, a couple of things I didn't mention earlier. One, make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. As you can see, there's little fumes that are coming out of this thing. So being in a well-ventilated area is a plus, no, a must, I should say. And the other is, I do have the power supply here plugged into a power strip with a circuit breaker. So if anything did go wrong, I would hope that that would pop. But anyways, this is going just as normal, just like it should. You can see it fizzling. The amperage is a little bit up, and that's fine. So we'll take a look at it in another 5 minutes or so when I think it should be done to my liking. And then we'll see what we have at that point. All right, so stay tuned. Okay, so it's been about 19 minutes or so. Still fizzling, but I think this is gonna be it for us. So I'm gonna unplug the power supply, or at least shut off the power strip here. You saw the amperage was up beyond 5 amps. So let's see what we've got here. Okay. Yeah, I can feel about a 1/16 of an inch. That's off. That's so I think we're going to leave it at that. I like that. Okay, because what we're going to do is we're going to paint this black, and then we're going to steel wool or sand the top layer off, so that way the paint will stay in. So you'll see how that works. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this out so we can see what we've got here. I'll use brand new tape again. You can see what I mean. A little bit of the water seeped in underneath the electrical tape and corroded this a little bit, so it was eating it away. So you just got to make sure you cover this really well. Okay, we'll take the vinyl off. Okay, there you go. So you can see where the metal was eaten away, and it came out pretty nice. Even the thin line stayed intact. Like I said, anything that's covered isn't going to get eaten away. So that's what that looks like. So what we'll do is we'll paint this whole thing black. It's okay to have the black seep over, and then we'll just steel wool it or fine sandpaper it down so the black will stay inside the embossed area, and then this will come out looking aluminum, and then we'll clear coat it. And then, yeah, there you go. Nice metal, unlike the, that plastic that you get when you're paying like $20 for these things. So, and then we silicone the thing onto the cap. When we use silicone, in case something happens later on, you can remove this. So I don't use something that's permanent. All right. All right, so stay tuned. I'm going to do the other three, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the process of painting, sanding, and then we'll wrap this thing up. All right. Okay, so now that I've got these etched, I think earlier I made mention that I'm embossing. I meant etching. So now that I have these things etched, you can see how much material was taken off of the logo, which is really nice. So we're going to paint them now. Okay, I'm going to paint them a dark gray with this duplicolor. And it doesn't matter if I'm going to paint the whole thing, because I'm going to be sanding the top layer. So that way the only painted piece that you'll see then is the dark gray on the logo, and then we'll clear coat it afterwards. So you'll see how this takes place. Get this thing sprayed here. Okay. So I think that looks fine. I'll just give it a spray from the other side just to make sure we got all the little crevices. Okay. All right, so I think that's good. This is really good paint, and it puts a good layer, but like I said, I don't think we're going to need more than the couple of coats we just put on. And then what we'll do is we'll clear coat it. Well, first we'll take the paint off of the surrounding areas around the logo, and you'll see how that works once the paint dries. And then we'll clear coat it, and then we'll use silicone to put it onto the wheel cap. That'll be that. All right, so stay tuned. Okay, so now that I got the discs painted here, I'm going to take some fine emery cloth and lay it down on a flat surface. And then I'm going to take these discs and I'm going to start sanding away the top layer of paint that we just put on. Okay, you can see it's starting to sand away, and what this is going to do is it's going to take the top layer of paint but leave the painted area that's recessed in place. Okay, and then I'm going to get some steel wool, just kind of buff it out a little bit. Okay, so there you go. So I'm going to do the other three the same way, and then I'll buff this a little bit to take a little bit of the remaining small subtle scratches out, and then we'll spray some clear coat on it to protect it, and there you go. And you can do this with your logo or with anything, as long as you cover the aluminum. It's going to etch only the exposed aluminum. And also you have to be careful. If you leave it in there too long, these discs are a little bit thin. If you leave it in that solution too long, it'll go right through. It'll eat up a lot of the aluminum very quickly. So you'll end up having small holes in it. So you have to time the amount of time that it's immersed strategically. Okay, so there you go. Let's do the other 3 and then we'll wrap this up. All right, stay tuned. All right, so here's the final product, so to speak. Fully clear coated. Came out really nice, I think. Here's the silicone I'm going to use to mount them and see what they look like on here. So Jason at GetYourWheels.com hooked me up with these wheels, sweet wheels. The Vertinis that I have are no longer made. He hooked me up with those as well early on when I first got the car. So just wanted to give him a shout out. So this is what this is going to look like once it's on the wheel. Let's see if it can stay on here so I can at least give you an idea. There we go. So that's what that's going to look like. I think it's going to look subtle. This is what I wanted. Although the wheels are less than subtle, especially with the red calipers. But yeah, so this came out great. So I hope you got something out of this video, basically how to etch aluminum. I mean, make your own custom logos and go crazy. And for the Tesla owners out there, especially those that have the Model S's, I stagger my wheels and tires because I like to have the side walls of the tires match up with the wheel wells. So these are the tire sizes that I use for the front and the rear. I can post offsets for the wheels if you really need them, but you can see the difference in the width between the rear and the fronts. So all right, so I'll wrap this up with the final view of what these look like mounted on the car. And yeah, so stay tuned and we'll wrap this up. All right, so let's see how this turned out, right? There you go. Nice and subtle. The ones I did for the previous wheels I had on here were very jet black. They stuck out. I did some in red as well, but I really like the subtle look. So I went a little bit more subtle with gray this time. Yeah, so they turned out really nice. The silicone holds up really well. I've already driven this about 100 miles since I've had them on with no issues. And the other thing is, if you own a Model S, this is why I did the staggered wheels for this. You can see that the wheels and tires, I should say, line up with the fender wells. So the ones that are stock, they recede a little bit inside the fender wells. But I really like to have the wheels and tires come out to the edges of the fender wells. So that's why I went with the staggered wheels and tires. So up to you if you want to do that or not, but there you have it. All right, so hopefully you got something out of this. Mainly, you know how to etch aluminum. Doesn't have to be wheel caps, it could be anything aluminum. Design your own logos, slap them on a piece of aluminum and go at it. All right, so appreciate you watching, and like I always say, live for today. You only live once. Enjoy it. Peace out.